You notice it before you can even name it. Her replies used to come fast. Now they take hours. Sometimes they don't come at all. Her messages used to have warmth in them, a certain energy, a certain aliveness. Now they are short, flat, polite in a way that feels almost clinical. She used to initiate. Now you are always the one reaching out first. She used to share things with you, little things, random things, the kind of details people only share with someone they feel close to. Now the conversation feels like work, like you are pulling something from someone who no longer wants to give it. And your mind starts doing what men's minds do in that moment. It goes to the worst place immediately. Did I say something wrong? Did I move too fast? Is there someone else? Is she losing interest? Is this already over? The anxiety builds. The silence feels louder than any argument, and the urge to do something, to text her, to call her, to ask what is wrong, to fix whatever broke, becomes almost unbearable. But here is what most men do not know. That urge, that impulse to chase the distance, to demand answers, to increase effort and pressure, is the single fastest way to guarantee that she pulls further away. Because distance is not always what it looks like. It is not always rejection. It is not always the end. And if you misread it, if you respond to it with panic instead of understanding, you will turn something temporary into something permanent. In this video, I am going to break down exactly what it means when she becomes distant, the real psychological reasons behind it, the mistakes most men make when it happens, and the exact response that preserves attraction, maintains your dignity, and gives the situation the best possible outcome. This is not surface level advice. This is the psychology most men never get access to. Stay with me until the end, because the section on what distance actually signals will completely change how you interpret female behavior from this point forward. My name is Lira, and this is Mystique Psychology. If you are new here, welcome. This channel is built for men who want to understand the deeper psychology behind attraction, masculine presence, and human behavior. Not tricks, not tactics. Real understanding that transforms how you see yourself and how others experience you. If that is why you are here, subscribe right now. Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Every week I go this deep and deeper. You do not want to miss what is coming now. Let's talk about what is actually happening when she pulls away. When she becomes distant, the first thing most men do is assume the worst. They treat distance like a verdict, like a decision has already been made, and they simply were not informed yet. And from that assumption, from that panic, everything falls apart, because here is what men do when they think she is pulling away. They text more, they call more, they become suddenly more available than they have ever been. They ask, "Are you okay? And did I do something wrong? And why are you being like this?" They increase their emotional investment at the exact moment she has decreased hers. They push harder precisely when the situation is calling for stillness, and she feels all of it. She feels the desperation underneath the questions. She feels the anxiety behind the extra attention. She feels the neediness in the effort. And that feeling, that energetic signal of insecurity, is one of the most powerful attraction killers that exists. Here is the fundamental truth about attraction that most men never learn. Attraction is not a light switch. It is not simply on or off. Attraction in a woman is emotional and cyclical. It moves, it fluctuates, it expands and contracts. It can cool slightly and then reignite stronger than before if the man responds correctly. But when a man treats natural emotional fluctuation like a crisis, when he reacts to a small withdrawal with a large escalation, he sends one message that overrides everything else. "I am not secure without your attention," and that message destroys attraction faster than almost anything else a man can do. Distance is not random, it is not meaningless, it is psychological, and understanding what it actually signals changes everything about how you respond to it. There are 5 core reasons a woman becomes distant, and most of them are not what you think. The first reason, she is processing emotion. Women do not always process emotion outwardly the way men expect. When feelings intensify, especially positive feelings, especially attraction, many women instinctively pull back, not because they feel less, but because they feel more. Strong attraction can feel overwhelming, especially early on when she is not yet sure if those feelings are safe to act on. Pulling back gives her space to process what she is experiencing without losing control of it. This means that sometimes, not always, but sometimes, her distance is not a sign that she is losing interest. It is a sign that she is managing interest that has become intense. And if you respond to that by chasing her, you take away the space she needs to process it. You make her emotional experience feel unsafe, and she withdraws further. The second reason, she is testing your emotional stability. Sometimes distance is subconscious, but purposeful. She pulls back slightly, not dramatically, just enough, and watches what you do. Do you remain steady? Do you hold your frame? Do you continue living your life with the same energy as before? Or do you immediately shift into anxiety mode, reaching out more, checking in more, making it clear that her withdrawal has destabilized you? This is not manipulation in the way most men think of it. It is instinctive. She is reading your emotional architecture. She is observing what you are made of when the situation becomes slightly uncertain. And a man who remains calm, grounded, and unbothered in the face of that uncertainty communicates something that is deeply biologically attractive. I am secure in myself. I do not need your reassurance to maintain my sense of worth. That is masculine strength, and it is magnetic. The third reason, attraction is genuinely cooling. Yes, this one is real too. Sometimes distance does mean that something has shifted in how she feels. But here is the critical thing to understand. Attraction does not die suddenly. It does not switch off in a single moment. It fades gradually, usually for specific reasons: overavailability, predictability, the disappearance of tension, too much emotional investment too quickly, the relationship losing its sense of mystery and challenge. When attraction fades, distance is a symptom, not the cause, which means that chasing the symptom, chasing the distance itself, does nothing to address the actual problem. The correct response is to address the cause, to reintroduce space, mystery, and masculine grounding, to become less available, not more, to redirect energy back into your own life and let her notice the shift. The fourth reason, she feels overwhelmed by the pace. If you escalated too quickly, if you became emotionally intense too soon, if your investment outpaced hers, if the dynamic shifted from mutual to one-sided, she may have pulled back simply to breathe. Not because she dislikes you, but because the energy became asymmetrical and she needed space to rebalance. This is one of the most common causes of early distance. A man who falls too fast, who gives too much, who makes the relationship feel more serious than it is yet, creates pressure that feels like weight, and her natural response to that weight is to create distance. The fifth reason, her attention is divided. This is the one men fear most. And yes, it happens. Sometimes she is distant because someone or something else has entered her attention. But even here, especially here, panic is the worst possible response. The moment you compete emotionally, the moment you make your anxiety visible, the moment you lower yourself into jealousy or desperation, your perceived value drops sharply, and the contrast between your energy and someone else's becomes even more unfavorable. The only response that preserves your value in this scenario is the same response that works in every other scenario: stillness, groundedness, calm, secure, masculine presence. I want to pause here for a moment because if you are watching this and something is resonating, if you are recognizing patterns in your own behavior or finally understanding things that confused you before, this is exactly what Mystique Psychology is built for. Every week on this channel, I go this deep into the real psychology behind attraction, masculine presence, and emotional intelligence. Not surface level tips, the actual mechanisms, the understanding that changes not just what you do, but who you are. Subscribe to Mystique Psychology right now. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and keep watching because we are just getting to the most important part. To truly understand why distance happens and why chasing it makes everything worse, you need to understand one foundational concept in attraction psychology: emotional polarity. Attraction does not thrive in sameness. It does not thrive in total comfort. It thrives in tension, in the space between two people that creates curiosity, uncertainty, and desire, in the dynamic where both people feel drawn towards something they do not yet fully possess. When that tension disappears, when a man becomes completely predictable, completely available, completely transparent in his investment, the emotional charge between two people collapses. Not because she decided to stop feeling attracted, but because the conditions that sustained attraction have been removed. Think of it like a magnetic field. The pull exists because of the space between the poles. Bring them too close together, collapse that space, and the magnetic force weakens. Space creates pull. Availability reduces it. Mystery sustains desire. Transparency in excess diminishes it. When she becomes distant, she may be unconsciously restoring the polarity that has been lost, not manipulating you, not playing games, simply responding to an energy imbalance that her emotions are registering, even if she cannot consciously identify it. Her subconscious is saying, the tension is gone. I need to restore it. So she pulls back. She creates space. She reintroduces uncertainty. And if you respond by chasing that distance, by eliminating the space she just created, you confirm the imbalance instead of correcting it. You prove that your energy is more invested than hers, and the dynamic tips further in the wrong direction. The correct response is to allow the space, to not just tolerate it, but to inhabit it, to use it, to redirect the energy you were pouring into her back into yourself, your purpose, your growth, your life, and let the shift in your presence be felt without announcement. When you stop chasing, something interesting often happens. She notices, the dynamic shifts, the polarity restores, and she begins moving toward you. Not always, but often enough that this understanding is the most valuable thing you can take from this video. Let me be specific about the behaviors that accelerate her withdrawal, because most men do these things with good intentions, and most men never realize the damage they are causing. The first behavior is demanding clarity. What is wrong? Why are you being like this? Did something happen? Are we okay? These questions feel reasonable from the inside. You want to understand. You want to fix it. But from her perspective, these questions feel like pressure, like interrogation, like you are making your emotional need for reassurance her responsibility to manage. And that is exhausting. It does not create closeness. It creates more distance. The second behavior is increasing effort. More texts, more calls, more attention, more compliments, more plans. The logic is, if she is pulling away, I will pull her back with effort. But effort motivated by anxiety is felt as desperation, and desperation is one of the most repellent energies in romantic dynamics. The more you try to fill the space with effort, the more crowded and suffocating the dynamic feels to her. The third behavior is seeking reassurance, fishing for confirmation that she still cares, that you still matter, that everything is okay. This behavior reveals that your emotional stability is dependent on her attention, and that revelation, once made, is very difficult to undo. All three of these behaviors share a common root: insecurity. And while insecurity is deeply human and completely understandable, its expression in these moments is what separates the men who navigate distance successfully from the men who turn it into a permanent loss. So, what do you actually do when she becomes distant? The answer is simpler than most men expect, and harder to execute than it sounds. You match her energy without mirroring her withdrawal dramatically. You do not flood her with attention. You do not disappear completely. You simply stabilize. You continue living your life with the same energy, the same purpose, the same presence you had before she pulled back. You do not chase. You do not pressure. You do not demand. You give space, not as a tactic, not as a game, but because space is genuinely what the situation calls for. And then you focus on yourself, on the things that matter in your life beyond this one relationship: your work, your goals, your friendships, your growth, not as performance, not to make her jealous, but because a man who has a full, purposeful life is not destabilized by a woman's temporary withdrawal. And that stability, that groundedness, is felt even in silence. If her distance is temporary, if it is emotional processing, or a test, or an overwhelmed response to pace, she will return. And when she does, she will return to a man who passed the hardest test there is, the test of remaining himself under pressure. If her interest is genuinely fading, your calm response preserves your dignity, your self-respect, and your attractiveness for whatever comes next. You do not become someone who chased and begged and made himself small. You remain the man you are, and that matters, not just for her perception of you, but for your own. Either way, composure is the correct response. There is no scenario where panic serves you. There is one important distinction I want to make before we close. Everything I have described so far applies to distance that is temporary, distance that is part of the natural emotional fluctuation of attraction, and most distance falls into that category. But sometimes it does not. Sometimes distance is not a shift. It is a direction. It is consistent, increasing, and unresponsive to any change in energy. The conversations do not just cool, they stop. The effort becomes entirely one-sided. The connection that existed begins to feel like something you imagined. When that happens, when distance becomes a pattern rather than a phase, it is no longer psychology. It is incompatibility, or disinterest, or an exit that is happening quietly, without a direct conversation. And in that case, no amount of strategy, patience, or masculine composure will reverse it. Some things cannot be recovered. Some connections are not meant to last. And the most powerful response to a genuine ending is not to fight it. It is to accept it with the same dignity and groundedness you would bring to anything else. Because a Stoic man does not only remain calm when things might work out, he remains calm when they do not. That is the real test of emotional strength. And passing it, truly passing it, is what makes a man someone worth coming back to, even when he has walked away. Let me leave you with this. When she becomes distant, it is not automatically the end. It is not automatically rejection. It is a signal. And like all signals, it requires reading, not reacting. Your job in that moment is not to chase. It is not to perform. It is not to prove your value through effort or words or reassurance seeking. Your job is to observe, to remain still, to hold your frame, to trust yourself enough to give the situation the space it needs without dissolving into anxiety. Because distance reveals something, and what it reveals is not just about her, it reveals something about you, about how securely you are anchored in your own identity, about whether your emotional stability depends on her attention or exists independently of it, A man who remains grounded when she pulls back, who continues being himself without chasing, without pressure, without changing who he is to regain what he fears losing. That man communicates something that cannot be faked and cannot be taught in a single lesson. He communicates, I am enough, with or without this. And that energy, quiet, steady, unshakable, is the most attractive thing a man can project. Not because it is a strategy, but because it is the truth of a man who has done the inner work. If this video changed how you see female behavior, if it gave you a new framework for understanding distance, attraction, and masculine presence, then I want you to do one thing right now. Subscribe to Mystique Psychology. This channel exists for men who want real understanding, not surface advice, not quick fixes. The actual psychology behind human behavior, attraction, and what it means to become a man with genuine inner strength. Every week I release content that goes this deep. Subscribe now, turn on the notification bell, and leave a comment below. Tell me, have you ever experienced this kind of distance from a woman? What did you do? How did it turn out? I am Lira. I read every comment, and I want to hear from you. Share this video with a man who needs it, someone who is going through this right now and does not know how to respond. This might be exactly what he needs to hear. A man who remains steady when everything feels uncertain. That man is rare. That man is powerful. That man does not need to chase anything, because what is meant for him will find him. My name is Lira. This is Mystique Psychology, and I will see you in the next one.